Child of not that smart parents, when did you notice that your parents are a bit slow and how has it affected your life? When I helped them study to get their high school diploma, they were 36, I was 12. I love my parents to death, but they took some pretty dumb decisions in their life. At least they were hardworking, always brought food to the table, a crappy roof over my head, and they were loving. So in the end, that's all you really need. It didn't really affect my life. All they really wanted of me was to finish high school and then they would stop pushing for me to study, since I hated it so much. Once that happened, I was faced with the opportunity to stop school, but I decided to push a bit further to see if I might like it. After studying in a bunch of different fields, I now have a master's degree and an, arguably, nice job. My father was hit head-on by a drunk driver going 90 miles per hour on the wrong side of the road when he was a teenager. They had to use the jaws of life to get him out, and he didn't have a pulse. After performing CPR, they got a pulse back. He spent 3 months in a coma, and had about 1 stroke 4 of his skull reconstructed with a metal plate. He couldn't get in Russian radio stations like Pete's mom. Ugh. He is not a dumb man. He came from a working class, broken home to give his kids a solidly middle class life, but he does have cognition issues. Slow is a way you could describe him. Sometimes people have to explain things to him a few times before he gets it. I can always tell when he is lost because he makes this distinctive face. I remember being as young as 8 or so and having to re-explain things, like things neighbors say, my teachers say, my friends' parents say, etc. When I was young it was frustrating, but by the time I was 16 or so, I understood his plight, and I'm immensely proud of him for accomplishing what he has accomplished despite having so many cards stacked against him. That is a heartbreaking story. What a struggle. When my mom started getting heavily involved in a multi-level marketing scheme, she's convinced they're curing cancer and helping people become immortal, and any day now she'll start raking in tons of money. MLM, the true sign of a non-smart person. My mum told me that if I kept any flowers in my room they would suck up all the oxygen and I would die in my sleep. Honest to goodness. Flowers nature's fans. I'm a bit slow too, so it figures. I love my parents. Good old self-awareness is the crap. My stepdad. My folks split before I got to school age, and they had weekly split custody, so I bounced back and forth frequently between 2 very different households. My stepdad and I butted heads basically until I was 16. I was lazy in school and got way worse grades than I was capable of. One day I was putting the lawnmower away and he just kinda showed up and pulled me aside and said, "You're way too smart to be pulling this crap. Don't be me." And he walked away. Something about it clicked from that point on. I respected the crap out of him. He was full of concise advice like that, and I wish I would have given him the time of day prior to that. I still fricked up high school, but he's kind of my go-to guy for no bulls. This is what you need to hear advice. For a second I thought your stepdad was saying you were too smart for lawn mowing. I wouldn't call my parents smart. They are incredibly hard workers and lived at or near the poverty line my entire childhood. My dad works 2 or 3 jobs at a time, including farming. My mom works at a fast food restaurant. Last time I was home my dad and I started talking about land and he realized he never actually sat down and figured out how much his land was worth. He had over 1,000 acres in 2 different counties. He figures an acre could go for $1,000 to $2,000. Yet my parents are millionaires. They always preach to strong work, don't waste money, and focus on family. I hope I can be half the parent that my parents are. Well, my mother isn't too sharp, but because my dad is a genius they are divorced. It never really affected me. Sometimes it can be humorous. For example, my mom just got her first non-flip phone. She is 60, and she figured out. Another example is evidently her neighbor had a baby. My mom had the neighbor take a picture of my mom holding the baby and my mom sent it to me. I didn't know who the baby was, so I said, "Who is that?" She replied, "Well, I am not sure who you are talking about, so the baby is the neighbor's and the lady in the picture is me." Your mum sounds like a funny lady. If you weren't positive she was a little slower than most, I would assume she was just having fun. Good for her. My dad, whenever he would come into some money, inheritance, etc., would always blow it on some get rich quick scheme or unnecessary luxury. He was suckered more than once into a land buying scheme. He once inherited about $10,000 and went to a boat show and put it as a non-refundable down payment on boat. He had never been on a boat in his life. He never bought that goddamn boat. In the meantime we were poor, but because we were my mom's responsibility in the divorce he didn't feel we deserved any help. I haven't spoken to him in 7 years and have no idea where he lives. I learned the value of money and how a fool and his money are soon parted. I analyze where my money goes, have various sources of income and responsibly invest in a diverse set of options. I financially assist my mom and sister while my fiancé and I live well below our means. I patterned my life on thinking what would my dad do, and I just do the opposite. I wish him no ill will. He grew up in poverty and in a highly abusive household. My life has turned out well, so no hate in my heart. I just can never wrap my head around what he was thinking with that boat. My mom raised me for the most part, and it wasn't all that long before I realized that she's just not smart. She works harder than anyone I know and is incredibly kind, but a lot of things just don't make sense to her no matter how much they're explained to her. To make matters worse, she's like the poster child for learned helplessness. If she doesn't know how to do something, like play music from her phone for instance, she won't Google it on her own. She'll have me do it. I'll write down instructions so she can do it herself later, but she never does. I have to do it every time. As far as its effect on my life, it's really just a huge, frustrating obstacle. Trying to reason with a person who just can't seem to think rationally is incredibly annoying. Also, like someone else says, it just makes me not value her opinions or suggestions for me as much. Sounds a lot like my mom. She does have a history of mental and physical abuse she suffered as a child, which I think has bled into her day-to-day life. It might be fear of persecution or error shadowed by those things she never quite dealt with. All of that being said, it's like drawing blood from stone teaching her anything technology related. Frustrating at times, but I love her all the same. Dad is very intelligent, but emotionally retarded and distant. Mom is sweet, but she dropped out of high school, is constantly mired in this stupid freaking skincare pyramid scheme, Roden and Fields, spends all her money on useless crap. I love her, but growing up it was hard. Didn't help that she was a drunk. Crap, my best friend from high school just got into that R&F crap, and I was hoping it was legit. I should have known. I love her, but much like the parents in this thread, she's not always so bright. When I was about 15 I stayed with my mom at work for a few hours after school. Every time she spoke with someone who looked Hispanic or Asian she tried to mimic their accent in her all too American voice. I asked her right before I left why she did that, as I was sure they found it offensive. She said it helped them understand her better. I instantly facepalmed and realized she wasn't really all there upstairs. My mom I love dearly, but isn't brilliant. My dad is quite a bit smarter. Around my stupid teenage years I started calling my mom on stupid things she'd say. She said something like, yeah, he was in Top Gun and Cocktail and Dirty Dancing and Pretty Woman, all my favorite movies. So I corrected her, no, whichever. I don't even know which actor she mistook for who wasn't in whichever crappy movie, but I did it kindly. She insisted, no, I know what I'm talking about. I grabbed the movies off the damned shelf. She had all the VHS tapes, and showed her the names of the actors and asked if they looked the same. She got all defensive and said, sometimes stars have different names so they can stay anonymous. It could be the same guy, and I wanted to shake her, she was so wrong. But at this point my dad heard us arguing, asked what was going on. We told him. He grabbed me by the collar. I don't remember what, but he literally forced me from the room. I don't think dragging, but it might have been, and said, don't worry honey, enjoy your movie. Then he told me, son, your mom isn't that smart. I know that, and obviously now you know that, but she loves you like no one ever will. Never act like that to her again. She's your mom and she's a heck of a lot better than mine was. Be grateful. And from then on, I love my mom. Whoa, sounds like your dad didn't really stand for any crap and got that out of the way. Glad you could accept that and love your mom. D. When my mom asked me how much food she should order for the two of us, I was 6 years old. She was serious. Even then I realized that she maybe wasn't so bright. Later realized she is at Forrest Gump level. My dad asked me if I knew where Christopher Columbus was from. I was probably in middle school, and I said I dunno, Italy, and he said no, Europe. For your information, he was from a place that would now be modern day Italy. I worked at a hospital that caters to the underserved, so the people I interacted with were very odd. Like every day was a people at Walmart day, and I want to say that I mean this in the nicest way, but it's the truth. Anyway, on more than one occasion I would see 50-something-year-olds with their 20-something-year-old children with extreme role reversals. When I would check them in for procedures, they had to sign their names, provided, fill out a short form for HIPAA, and schedule their follow-up appointments. The blank stares I would get back. My god. Okay mom, please sign your name on this pad. Nothing. Just mouth breathing. Their kids would have to hold their hand through the entire process. And then when their mom or dad didn't understand something, which was often, they would get frustrated and defensive with me, so their kid would have to calm them down or put simple terms into simpler terms. Sometimes the people were obviously suffering from mental degeneration as a result of seizures, medications, strokes, stuff like that. Other times it was alcohol or drug related, like they fried part of the brainstem and it's never coming back. And other times it was like an I Am Sam situation where the parent was and probably always had been mentally challenged, somehow managed to breed and produced a child with average intelligence. Sometimes both parents were slow, which was probably why they functioned as a couple, but they weren't like mentally challenged slow, just really dumb slow. And most of those people were from some country town where all they did was learn the Bible and not graduate from junior high. And typically they had driven a few hours because there were no hospitals where they lived. And more often than not they were argumentative, thought they were right about everything, and all things electronic were some sort of personal attack on them. In all of these situations I wondered about their kids, the normal offspring forced to raise their parents. Absolutely they had frustrating moments, but usually they were respectful, gentle and loving. I guess one would have to be in order to survive it. I'd look at their face and think this is someone who has come to terms with their parents' level of intelligence. Nothing more and nothing less. We are those parents. I wonder when my children will realize it about us. Maybe the 6-year-old already has. Haha, this is my fare. But then again I hope to God my kids are smart. They seems okay so far, and don't fry their brains with drugs the way I did in my youth. My wife is crazy smart, so I'm pretty sure they'll surpass me not too far in the future. Parents had me at 15 years old, didn't graduate high school. The one thing that stands out the most is how much money they will spend on cigarettes and unhealthy food. I love my family and want the best for them, but every time I try to explain why they shouldn't be drinking 5 cans of Monster and liters of Pepsi a day, they just say that I am lecturing them. They live by self-sabotage mentally and physically, and I've noticed that I can get caught up in the same habits very easily. Thankfully I surround myself with people who can teach me something every day so I can inspire my family to do something great for themselves too. This is my own prejudice. When I see someone smoking, I automatically assume they are idiots. It's just so much money spent killing yourself. Good luck. There are 3 moments that have always stood out. When I was 5 I told my mother I wanted to make paper dolls and she asked me what they are made of. When I was 6 and explaining the existence of nocturnal animals, she listened on in complete amazement of this new information. When I was 11 my best friend said that you can be a Christian and also believe in evolution. When I mentioned this to my mother, she said it was impossible because the Bible said God created us in his image and evolution meant that monkeys flew to Earth from other planets on meat it was and then turned into humans. I'm still very curious how this theory formed in her mind. Luckily my mom is super smoking hot. Evolution meant that monkeys flew to Earth from other planets on meat it was and then turned into humans. I'm still very curious how this theory formed in her mind. I think she's confusing evolution with Scientology. When my father got a cell phone, we noticed he would ask us how to spell some pretty simple words, like 4-6 letters long. What really sticks out was at one point he asked us how to spell cat, and we just had to ask him how he thought it was spelt. Of course, he starts with a K. It's spelled cact. You're the one who spelled it wrong. Maybe your dad should be the one telling the stories. I think this is less not smart and more very uneducated. When I was young I had difficulty with reading due to complete lack of any reading at home. I'd beg my mom to help but she'd always refuse or insist on helping with math instead. My dad was never home so that wasn't an option. I had crap grades and got held back and made fun of for years. I finally realized around the 5th-6th grade my mother was illiterate and deeply ashamed of it. I confronted her about it and she cried and promised to do better. She started reading the same books as me so we could talk about them. She eventually got to the point she could finish the entire Harry Potter series. Now she reads every day, exclusively gay smut but hates reading but still doesn't get phonics so everything is more memory based, slow, and she can't spell for crap. I'd have to write all her emails for her in middle high school. I still have to and her texts are like a different language 50% of the time. Back then it frustrated me and made me crappy towards her. I blamed her for a lot that was wrong in my life and opportunities I missed. Wasn't until I got older that I appreciated how hard she tried for me and how difficult it was for her. She blamed herself for every bad grade or difficulty we had because she wasn't smart enough to help us. She had zero self-esteem and very little quality education but goddamn did she try for us. Exclusively gay smut. AIII. That's my kinda reading. I do genuinely find it very interesting and hilarious how your mom is the type to read exclusively gay stuff though. Can't imagine my own mum would, but that's a bit cool. When they'd teach me to do a new chore, and then a week later they'd see me doing it exactly as they had told me to do it, and then tell me I was doing it wrong and show me a new way that was nothing like how I'd originally been shown. They were preparing you for the working world. Here are some things my mom believes, other than Catholicism but that's a different thing. She told me not to use hot water to wash my hands or bathe because it softens your bones and that's how to end up with arthritis. If you're indoors where it's warm and you open a door or window and the cold wind hits you, your face will get paralyzed. Cats are evil and should not be allowed around infants as they will steal the baby's breath and kill them. The moment my dad told my mom to take the car up to the self-serve car wash to just spray it down with some water to get some dirt off, she didn't realize she had to squeeze the handle on the power washer to increase the pressure. I tried to get out of the car to show her how to do it, but she wasn't even concentrating on a specific area of the car, just misting the entire thing. I didn't want to get wet, so I let her go. I honestly thought it was pretty funny because she just looked like she was working so hard to get the car clean, and she was doing it so inefficiently. I told my dad about it when we got home and he just sighed. She's a nice lady though, just not great with common sense stuff. My mom is not dumb, but she has a shocking lack of life experience in some areas. She's basically never worked a real job in her life. She married dad right after college and never really had to worry about money the same way most of us do. She's never made a budget. Her basis for reasonable prices for simple things like groceries is stuck in the 80s. She insists I'm being taken advantage of by my work. But really it's just, this is the way the world is, mom. Life isn't as easy for us as it was for your generation. We have to work hard to survive and sometimes we get screwed a bit to avoid getting screwed a lot more. All too real. I'm working 12 hours, going home for a 5-hour nap, then coming back in for another 12-hour shift. Parents don't understand how it's possibly legal. I noticed when I reached adolescence, they always argued about the simplest things, often in plain public view, and would pick fights any chance they got. My mom went back to school and didn't understand that 20 plus minus 20 doesn't equal 40 no matter how clearly I tried to explain it to her. In high school I was in a competition and made state. I told my mom the date over a month in advance. Then she scheduled a family dinner on top of it and yelled at the teacher to take everyone back so that I could come. My grandparents had to step in and calm her down and try to reason with her. She would repeatedly tell me that she owns me and therefore didn't have to justify anything she told me to do. I get along better with her now that I've moved out. Sounds like a personality disorder. It's similar behavior to mine. I dated this girl I grew up with for a while, and her mom was a natural headache. No matter what, her mom was never on time. She had to work from home because she would get to jobs late consistently. Nobody could figure out why either. Her daughters would get her clothes ready, take care of chores, even drive her to places to be on time. The woman came off as lazy, and she never cared to fix it. Finally, something I can contribute. My father is a functional dyslexic and a loud, rather obnoxious man. I have known that he couldn't read or write since I was a small child. I remember helping him fill out paperwork when I was in 3rd grade. However, though he worked manual labor, he provided for us and loved us. And I am now a doctor. I used to be really ashamed of him and embarrassed to admit that I was even related to him. Now I just realize he was a man with limitations who did the best he could with what he had. Love you, Pop. Edited to say that a better description is that he is a semi-functional illiterate and not a very bright man. He has a fairly low IQ. My mom thought the sun and the moon were the same thing. I am not kidding in the least bit. But they're often in the sky at the same time. Me, mom, who would need to tell you that humans might have a hand in climate change for you to believe it? Rush Limbaugh. It was a gradual realization, to be honest. I started to think about what they were like a few years ago. Considering their education and employment histories, neither of them are well educated, having not even gone to college. They've never had successful, interesting or important jobs and have never put any effort into trying to improve themselves, get new skills or pursue a more skilled job. It's definitely something that I would say has affected me and my life. I don't think either of them are good parents, objectively speaking, and I definitely blame them for bringing me up in a crappy situation financially, etc. We're stuck living in a house we rent from the council, and as soon as I get a job a huge amount of my salary has to go towards the rent. They've trapped me in a depressing situation that seems incredibly difficult to get out of. They always complained about my sister and how she's such a failure and how they told her to do so many things. I talked to her for 5 minutes and learned they never said that and expected their glares to say it for them. Not to mention neither are college educated or have made any attempt to change any significant downsides about their current life. Guess we should stick around in a drug-ridden neighborhood when we make enough money to get a non-crap house and still have a decent amount of money to spend. Quite the opposite. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. Mark Twain. Let's start from the first time I noticed. 4th grade. I was making A's and B's in my classes, always wanting to be great. Scored free baseball ticket from my good grades. Excited to go. I suddenly became a fan. Asked my dad if we would go. Yeah, sure, definitely. The day comes around. Nothing happens. My grandma gets mad because he could have told her and she would have taken me, but he didn't. 5th grades. My grades slow down. I begin to sleep in class. Dad tells me I need to work hard because he could die one day, then I would have no one to rely on. Cry that day at school. Felt sick to my stomach. 6th grade. I hate school. I don't want to do anything anymore. Dad gets with his current GF. Where's my mom? They divorced at age 4 or 5. Don't even remember 7th grade. Don't even care. That's when we started moving. And every time I'd make friends they would be gone. Next year, Dad's GF is a psycho. Offered me drugs when I went to high school. Told Dad. Dad yelled at her. They were back together by the weekend. Yep. Got close to a teacher. Confessed my depression and my concerns for my dad. She basically told me I didn't know what I was talking about and I'm too young to be depressed. I'm so sorry. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.